Dad, what do you do for a living?
I pastor a church.
So, he's a pastor. In this video that we're going to watch, he's ranting about biblical morality and how there are unmoral things in the Bible.
I agree.
Great! What's up, guys? So, welcome back. Pastor Reacts videos. And, well, for those of you who don't know, Dad, what do you do for a living?
I pastor a church.
So, he's a pastor. I basically just get him to watch really interesting things, and he gives his opinion on it. And sometimes it helps people, and sometimes it really upsets people, but...
It is what it is.
Yeah. So before we get started, I want to say thank you to our sponsors at TheyAlmighty.com. They sent us these really awesome T-shirts. I mean, you can see
like
his
my
clearly.
lion, man.
Yeah. This, Be Humble, and then my dad's T-shirt with the lion.
The Lion King.
Yeah. So on their website, aside from selling clothing, what they also do is provide evidence that they say proves the existence of God through science and biology and all this other stuff. So they got a blog with a bunch of articles on their website, so be sure to check it out. So today, what we're going to be doing, speaking of upsetting people,
All right.
you are going to react and share your opinion on Matt Dillahunty. So do you know who Matt Dillahunty is?
Never heard of him.
All right, great. So Matt Dillahunty is a very famous atheist, and he has his own show called The Atheistic Experience.
Okay.
And basically, a lot of theists and Christians call in and try to talk to him and explain the Bible, share the Bible. But the thing is, he used to be a Christian, and he was in the church, and he, I believe, grew up in the Bible Belt, and he knows the Bible back and forth, and yet now he is a complete atheist. And so, in this video that we're going to watch, he's ranting about biblical morality and how there are unmoral things in the Bible.
I agree.
Great! All right, so this is going to be fun. So, here it is. Matt Dillahunty, his rant against biblical morality. You ready?
Sure.
So do you think that slavery as it's described in Exodus 21 is morally correct?
I think that slavery, as it's described in the entire Bible, is correct.
Okay, then you're immoral. You are in favor of owning people's property, beating them
No,
as
I
long
didn't
as
say I
they
was
don't.
in favor of it.
You just okay. You just said it was
Matt,
morally
I might be
correct.
able to
Are you
explain
not?
my view on it.
Seth,
Can you let me?
Seth, are you not in favor of that which is morally correct?
Yes, I am.
And you just said this was morally correct.
I think the Bible is morally correct on all of its pronouncements, yes.
So then you're in favor of what the Bible actually advocates that is morally correct, right?
Right.
So you're in favor of slavery as described in Exodus 21, right?
All right.
Thoughts so far?
Well, it's interesting because, my opening comment that the Bible has immoral things that take place in it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because people need to be redeemed. And that's the whole story of the Bible, that we read and look at how God handles people that reject him, don't want to follow him, and how he disciplines them and really loves them back into relationship. And people stray. So the Bible has many immoral acts in it because people have strayed from the love of God and knowing the love of God, and they do those things. But then the beauty of the story is how he woos them back, how he calls them back into relationship with themselves, himself.
Well, so they get more into it, and unless you didn't notice, that's Matt that's talking. That's Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah.
And people tell me, like, a lot, or this is an argument that I've had with people, that they say the Bible is inerrant, and it's like everything in the Bible is good. And almost like I'm not sure if people have said this exactly, but this has been implied by a lot of people, that the Bible is without sin. And I'm like, well, if you want to live a life, like, if you don't want to read something that has sin a part of it or in it, then you might as well also throw out the Bible.
Sure, the Bible it's a book of redemption. I mean, after Genesis chapter 3, it's all about redemption and people that are messing up, people that are turning away from God, and how God works with them, and how he just like a father with a son, a wayward child. Mm-hmm. And so I would disagree that the Bible's all, I mean, the way that God draws them back is moral, but the way that people live very immoral.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not saying the entire Bible immoral, but because I think that there's principles in the Bible that are,
sure.
Lifelong principles that everyone would agree with in some sense.
Right.
But I'm just saying there's stories in the Bible that it's like if you're trying to read something without sin, without any of that, then it's like, yeah, you might as well just throw away the Bible.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of slavery. Okay, hold on. Can you just let me explain fully what I mean?
I think this was a really simple question.
Okay, well, just give me a second and I'll do my best to explain. Slavery is sometimes not more than indentured servanthood.
I don't care. I don't care, Seth. I don't care.
Matt,
Seth, I do not Seth, I swear, Seth, I do not give a rat's ass about indentured servitude and the sloppy, stupid apologetics that try to do this. I'm talking about what the book actually says. I'm talking about slavery, owning people's property, beating them as long as they don't die. I am not talking about indentured servitude, which, by the way, I also think is immoral. But we're not talking about that, so please don't misdirect to it. I asked you what you thought about what the Bible says in Exodus 21, and now you're tap dancing.
All right, he's making his point clear.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So my response to that is the fact of we need to ask the person that, quote, is considered a slave, whether or not they feel they're being mistreated, not cared for, or don't have a way out.
But this is the thing. Slavery is slavery. So does it? So are you saying that if the people feel like it's good for them that they're in that position, that it's still right, it's still moral?
But there's people that are getting a wage today that are in slavery.
Meaning
they don't have another option for another job. They're getting paid, but they're in sweatshops. They're in places, not necessarily in our country, but it could be that they don't have another option and they feel enslaved even though they're getting a wage. What do you do with that?
They feel enslaved. They feel enslaved,
Sure.
Or they are enslaved.
Well, maybe they are enslaved because they don't feel like they have an option to get a different job.
Because I feel like that's almost a different discussion. That one could argue, well, I'm a slave because I'm in the system and I got to pay my bills and I have to work here, and it's a stupid argument, but I guess it could be made on the same type of grounds that what you're saying.
Sure. Because the fact is that maybe the person that is, quote, being enslaved actually is being cared for. I'm not talking about being beaten or held against their will. That's not what I'm talking about. But there are slaves in the Bible that are called slaves,
yeah,
that were there by choice, and they were actually appreciated by their master. They were fed, they were clothed, they were educated by their master. And
so that sounds like an employee.
Yeah.
So you're saying that okay. So I don't think that's what he's talking about. Whether that's
I don't think that's what he's talking about either. I'm just trying to get in the biblical framework. No, I think he's very clear what he's talking about.
But I mean, would you say that the biblical, as in Exodus 21, just like he's talking about?
I would have to reread the chapter. I don't have.
But about you being able to beat your slaves till they almost die and that sort of thing. Would you say that's immoral?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Is that what it says in Exodus 21?
Yeah, I mean that's what he said. I
need
also,
to read it.
Okay.
I don't necessarily want to take his word for it. Sorry. I want to read it for myself.
I like it.
Okay.
I like it. And I think a lot of people should, adopt that mindset. So let's keep going.
Okay, can you let me fully explain my position?
Maybe, and maybe not. It depends. Are you going to answer the question, or are you going to tap dance?
Okay, I'm in favor of all of the moral pronouncements of Scripture. What I see as far as slavery goes is that I see Hebrew slavery as no more than indentured servitude.
Go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/SansDeity. I have a video up covering slavery. Also, you don't even have to do that. Just ignore me. I don't matter. Go read your damn book. It's not indentured servitude. It tells you to buy your slaves from the heathens around you. That's slave trade. That's not, this person owes you money, they need to come work it off. This tired apologetic of trying to say, oh, slavery in the Bible is nothing like what your modern version looking at slavery in America has polluted your mind to what slavery was in the Bible. No, I don't ever even need to consider the atrocities that we committed in the United States of America by owning people as property and making them work. You could point to slaves who were very happy that they were in that condition. Doesn't change the fact. I can read the Bible, Exodus 21, I can read what it says because it tells you right there exactly how to trick a fellow Jew into being a slave permanently instead of for just merely 6 years like it starts off saying. It specifically tells you to buy the slaves from the heathen around you, that they become, in Deuteronomy, that they are your property and can be passed on to your children, that you can beat them as long as they don't die within a day or two. If you want to call that indentured servitude, you are bizarrely confused about.
Agree, disagree?
Yeah, again, I would have to go back and read Exodus 21 that he keeps referring to, and then I would have to make a distinction between somebody that is following God and somebody that's not. Because somebody that's following Jesus, following God, the one God, Yahweh, in the Old Testament, they know they would have a certainly different attitude towards another person than somebody that's not following God. They would treat that person as property.
You're talking about the masters.
Yes, talking about the masters.
But I mean, I think his argument is like slavery is slavery.
Yeah, again, how do you look at slavery? I mean, somebody that's trapped in a job today, they could say.
So would you say this is more of a philosophical issue than a theological issue?
I believe it's a philosophical issue more than a theological issue. Yes, sir. I agree with you, son.
I like it.
Good point. Shall we continue?
Yeah, I don't even know what else to ask. That I feel like that. I'm trying to think of another question, but I feel like we came to the issue. So I guess my next question is, philosophically, what would you say then?
Well, philosophically, then you have to engage the person that is called a slave and the master. And you have to really have a conversation with the two together to say, how do you feel about working for him with no wages? And does he treat you well? Does he give you food? Does he give you shelter? Does he give you education? Does he allow you to marry? Does he allow you to give a home for your family? I mean, there's a lot of things.
So you're saying, like, even though they might be called slaves,
correct,
that they are in a sense just bartering.
Yeah.
That it's like,
exactly.
Okay, yeah, I'll do work for you as long as you give me, a roof over my head, clothes on my back, and food on the table.
Right. Because that's where he's referring to indentured servants. What I understand is indentured servants were people that did work like for a contract for a period of time, and then at the end of that time, however long it was that they fulfilled their contract, they said, we want to stay. And so they actually got indentured. They got the piercing of in the ear to say, we are blessed by this master. He's treated us well. We want to live out our life here rather than go out on our own and try to make it on our own. So that's
my question to that is what he mentioned, that it also says in, I think, Deuteronomy, either Exodus or Deuteronomy, which is the two verses that he's mentioned, is that it says, but it specifically tells you how to trick someone into.
First time seeing this, so
gotcha.
I didn't read it. I wasn't in Exodus. That was someplace else. Yeah. I was in John this morning, so nice. I need to go back and check it out. Yep.
Cool. Let's keep going.
What that book actually says. And if you want to say, try to hold on to, the Bible is absolutely correct and absolutely moral, and yes, I accept that what the Bible says about slavery is right, and then try to pull a tap dance about claiming that it's indentured servitude, you are either a liar or profoundly confused. In either case, we are done wasting time on this issue.
Calling something by a different name doesn't really make it something else.
It's not slavery. It's really happy, friendly, nice slavery. Yes, it says you can own
slavery
them as property.
Plus.
It's slavery plus. It says you can own them as property, but that's not always bad. I'm sure some people benefited from it. Wow. Hopefully today's show has been an exercise in exactly how difficult it is to pin people down on the subject of morality when they are appealing to a God that they have no demonstration even exists. And when you say that even if your God existed, I don't care about his opinion about morality. Morality, as the Euthyphro dilemma demonstrates, either transcends God, in which case God is just a messenger, or if it's derived from God, then it is fiat declaration, and it is worse than any moral relativism you could possibly appeal to. Because what you're really saying is, hey, if God says it, it's moral. So if God tells you to slaughter your kid, that's moral. If God tells you to own slaves, it's moral. God tells you to run around with your band of heathens, or your band of devout individuals, and slaughter all the heathens around you and keep the virgin daughters for yourself, that's moral, because God says so. Well, screw that God, and screw anybody who agrees with him, because those things aren't moral. And I'm tired of living in a world where we stupidly sit by and allow people to pretend to have the moral high ground when they are advocating and making excuses for moral absurdities and atrocities. It is far past time that we end all of that. There's absolutely no reason in 2013 that we should continue to have arguments about what it explicitly says in the book. It actually, word for word, read it and stop making excuses for it. We're out of time, actually.
That's pretty much the whole video. So
Yeah, he lost me at one point there. I didn't know what he was talking about, and
with I mean from what I gathered of that, and this is like the third time I watched this, but from what I gathered with that was that basically, I guess in his experience, I guess this is really the philosophical dilemma, that whatever God says is moral.
right.
And so, if God tells you to, and then he listed off all of those
Correct.
things, that it was
Right.
like there is something about that like, okay, that doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm sure you might say, I'm just guessing what you might say here, but you might say, if that's what they heard, were they really hearing from God? I don't know.
Not necessarily. The question I have to ask him would be who makes the final decision about
I would
things?
say
who's the final authority?
I think, and I've watched plenty of Matt's work. I love Matt, but I think that he would say that he is, because I believe he's a humanist in regards to why can't we decide morality that's what's best for us and the people around us, and what will take us there.
Correct. And see, that's where the issue of faith is, that when you trust in God, that you do have to trust that he has the best interest for you and the people around you. And that's whole reason why Jesus came, to let us live a life that's best for us and the people around us. And so what concerns me is if God's not an authority for Matt, then he becomes his own authority. And he becomes God in a sense.
But I mean,
when you say that's what,
no, I'd agree
that'd be a dangerous position for me to walk in.
Yes, but I think that he's in that position because of situations like this, of things like this, of verses in the Bible like that.
Okay. But
that's what I was saying, but.
And so you have to, again, you can take one verse, but then you have to look at the whole and the purpose, and so it's context, pretext without context is no text. Let me say that again. A pretext without context, picking one verse out without context is no text. In other words, you have to set it in the context in order for it to have meaning.
No, I agree with that. I would think, just from watching all of Matt's stuff, that he is talking about that verse in context. Okay. But I could be wrong. Obviously, I haven't read the verse recently at all, and you haven't read it. So
a bit of a loss.
Yeah. All right.
But hopefully generate some conversation.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Certainly a lot there. And be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and check out thealmighty.com. And we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.